Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. How you travelling?
I'm real good, real good. Just got in the door, off a flight, got myself a wine, and now I'm
Hey,
with you, lovely gentlemen.
well played, well played.
Yeah. I don't know if you got a message from Paul. He said he couldn't make it. He's stuck in traffic, so
I
he's doing.
just saw that email a few minutes ago, so I think that he's got a session with Stephen organised anyway.
Okay.
So we'll make sure he catches up. But we're recording this session as well, so we'll make sure that everybody sees a recording of that too.
Hello,
Hey,
Ingrid.
Ingrid.
Hello,
Hey, Ingrid.
Hiya.
I'm here.
You're here.
Made it.
We won't make you do a full health update in front of everyone, but it's good to see you.
It's great to have you back, Ingrid. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Oh,
Mr. Calendar in the car.
Oh,
Oh,
word.
we
You're
can't
muted.
hear you, Adam, but we can see you.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry.
You're
Yeah,
back.
so we've completed the softball run. We're just finalising the tennis run, and we'll be home in 10.
Priorities are important, mate. Well done.
Wednesday night sports, gotta love them. Mind you, in our household, they seem to happen just about every night. But
We've got a couple of dark squares in the middle of the list that I can see here at the moment. I'm guessing
They're both Mark.
they're both Mark Trulson, so
Yeah.
you're trying to make sure that we don't see him twice.
shadow.
Mark, I don't know, mate, if you can hear us, but
I can.
yeah, we got you there.
I've tried to get video with my phone and my laptop, and neither are working. So
We don't believe you for a second, mate.
I like looking at all the beautiful faces, though.
We've all had zits, Mark. It's okay.
Good. So Paul can't make it. Well, one Paul can't make it tonight. I think the other Paul is coming in shortly.
There he is now.
Marina
Hi,
should
folks.
be here with us
Sure, if you
shortly.
can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, we can hear you. Yes. All right, marvellous. Hey, we can see Trulson.
Oh no!
That's the way.
In bed.
Trouble.
With Mark.
He's worked it out. Farina's in. All right. So I reckon that that's enough of us to get started. Is that cool?
Cool.
All right. So I'm going to, just to kick things off today, I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to bring you back to the lesson plan. So the lesson plan for, that's what teachers do, is the lesson plan is that I've had a look at the people that did give us a response around the questions today. Stephen, welcome.
Hey guys.
And I just want to bring you back to the way that this group mentoring offer works and the way that we get things done. So I've had a bit of a look at the questions that came through via the survey, and there's a couple of things there that I just want to talk to for a minute and just hopefully provide, there was a couple of little themes that emerged across the questions. I think one of the ones that bobbed up was around some of the cadence and some of the motivation that comes with the tricky bits of being a thought leader, and what it would mean to be able to ride the highs and lows. There's a bit in there about roller coasters from Paul that I think is worth talking about, and that I think, Ingrid, you certainly have been riding a roller coaster as a thought leader over the last few months. So I'm going to talk to that for just a few minutes. Then the deal is we try to basically make sure that we give everyone a good 7 minutes. That the aim is that, whatever the topic is that you want to talk about today, whether you've sent it through or whether you're just bringing it along today, that we give you a chance to explain what you need to get out of the session today, and that as a team we jump in and try to provide whatever help we possibly can by guiding you through whatever it is you're trying to navigate your way through. So I mentioned before, the bit that I'd like to talk about today is this roller coaster type thing that happens as a thought leader. And I guess the first thing I did when I thought about motivation and roller coasters and dips and troughs was think about that. I don't think that I've spoken to a thought leader yet who hasn't experienced this. So the first thing is that we have unfortunately chosen to, again, I think it's just one of those things that when you decide to leave a job behind, that every second Thursday the pay doesn't come. So there are dips and troughs in terms of your income, And then there is the whole gig of, okay, if that's not my job anymore to get paid every second Thursday, what is my job? And so for me, when I'm experiencing challenges around motivation, getting myself a bit anxious or even a little depressed around whether things are going well or not, I go back to what's my job as a thought leader, and it's to think, sell and deliver. And what I try to do is to create a scoreboard for myself around that. I go back to some of Jason Fox's stuff around making progress visible for people and think, well, what can I do to try and make that visible for myself? So I realised I was doing it. I think I've spoken to some people in the room before around, through immersion. So I set up immersion in my moleskin. Whenever I sit down for the first day on a Thursday at immersion, and I take one page and divide it into a 3x3 grid, and in each, and I treat the day like it's a school day. So there's one section that's before recess, there's one section that's before lunch, and there's another section that's after lunch. And so for each section, I try to make sure that whoever's speaking, whatever we're doing, that I put 3 actionables in each box. So that means that at the end of every immersion, I typically leave with 27 actions. Why does that work for me? I think that it works because I love ticking them off. So I love hitting the next week with the opportunity to tick those things off. And so that's great. Immersion works for me by creating my own little scoreboard that I can get to 27 out of 27 and say, yeah, good boy. And I feel great. I feel energized. And the truth is that I can't remember a time when I've taken on all of the actions that I've written down and it hasn't resulted in sales. Something happens when you get incredibly active around that. And so what I try to do then is, if I'm feeling like I've had a tough quarter, like I haven't made the sales that I wanted to make, is that I go back to one piece of paper for think, one piece of paper for sell, one piece of paper for deliver, and I try to come up with actions that I can tick off. And if I get that going, I can feel that sense of accomplishment. I can feel the scoreboard starts to improve for me, and a little like that notion of progress that I get from immersion. I just find sales happen. You know, if I can go back to what's my key role as a leader. So I think that's all I really wanted to hit you with today. There's a few other bits and pieces from questions from people. I wanted to cover off on that one because that was Paul Matthews who put that one in there specifically, and he's not here today. But I think that was, if there was a theme in there, Steve, and I don't know about you, whether you saw a theme in those survey answers today that you want to elaborate on here for a minute before we start to work our way around everybody else in the room. But I think that it's a topic that from time to time is really worth some discussion. We're thought leaders, but we're everybody that I find in the community is a real feeler as well. So you're not just a thinker, you're a feeler. And as people, the emotional journey that we ride while we try to do what we have created for ourselves is really tough. You know, so I think that that's a conversation worth having from time to time. Stephen, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's the roller coaster. I'm very familiar with the roller coaster. Like you know, I think the thing of managing our mental health at the same time as the productivity and everything is often gets a bit. It can be very lonely, right? And I guess the big thing for me personally that I miss working in corporate is constantly being surrounded by people and a team. When you're actually working on your own, there's a very different energy. And even when you're delivering, it's different because you are obviously, you know, you're working with people, whether it's one-on-one mentoring or whether it's speaking or facilitating groups. And you get a lot of emotional energy in exchange from that. But it's all the other times when we're thinking, when we're creating IP, when we're either selling really well or we're struggling to have the confidence to sell. And I find that the way that I manage the roller coaster of emotions that often happen through that cadence is just to finish have a list of things that I can finish and finish. Don't try and finish a lot of things in a day, but finish one thing really, really well, right? And that might sound really basic, right? But I'm a thinker, right? So often it's easy for me to go off on tangents, right? And then I find that I've burned half of my day thinking about something and I've got nothing done, right? Sure, I've got a great few pink sheets, or I've written something really awesome for my book or whatever, but it's not helping the immediate, because the bottom line is when, the dollars create choice. So if you're selling and you have money coming into practice, flowing into practice, then, it alleviates some of the pressure. So I think, yeah, for me, it's around managing my mental health, and stay in good company. That's the other thing. Stay around people that are actually going to energize you. Yeah, anyway, like I could go on for a long time about that, but I think the finish one thing really well every day. If you've got a list of things, prioritize them, finish one thing really well. Surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you, and whether you do that virtually, depending on where you are, or whether you have a regular meetup or catch up with other people in the tribe, or other people that inspire you, and do things that actually also look after your mental health. So like meditation, yoga, physical stuff that actually keeps you up, keeps your endorphins up, your physiology at its peak. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it anyway.
Yeah, Paul, I saw your question in the chat there about specific actions that I take from immersion. And for me, I think this is about finding what works for you. So I perhaps am the opposite of Stephen in this regard, in that I tend to pick as many small things as I can. I love the momentum that comes from little things that are really actionable. I tend to be an avoider of big things done well. So to give you examples, Paul, of the things that I wrote from the last immersion, before I just sort of quickly grabbed my moleskin and looked in there. So I've got Act Upon Inner Circle, which was a new cluster that I was designing, was to actually get that going and to build something from that and bounce it off my team and get that going. I've had a note here about write a newsletter about the opposite of thoughts. So I develop a bus scout, which is what that actually came out of the last one, develop a bus scout that I've run the last 2 weeks in Melbourne and Sydney. I'm now going to run that in a few weeks' time in Brisbane because it took off and went a bit crazy. And also my business partner's going to be running it in regional Victoria as well. So that's sort of one thing that just came to me. Well, why have you never really done a decent bus scout properly that just gives people a chance to come and sample you? Go and do that. Then I realised I needed to get a decent flyer for that. So I had to try and find, there was a picture that I really wanted to include in that of a bunch of high school kids punching on in a hallway. Then I wrote down here that I needed to write the white paper for it, which was leading student behaviour improvement made slightly less difficult. Then I realised that for the bus scout, I wanted people to leave with a roadmap. So I made a note about a roadmap. I wanted to touch base with the people in Queensland who might be interested in this, and then a few principals as far as Toowoomba said, yes, we'll do it. So that's why I'm running it there. I'm starting an online academy, but I realise I don't really have any course architecture for that. And something at Immersion made me think I needed to do something about that. So it was design a PowerPoint slide that just had the architecture for what each of these courses will look like. So they're examples of all the little things that I just go for someone, and often it's off to the edge. It's not directly that someone on the stage said you should do this and I write it down. Somebody says something at my table and I go, oh yeah, and I'll write it down. So I like to get short and specific and feel that joy of being able to run a highlighter or tick them off or cross them off as I hit the first week. And my intention is to try and get as many of them done in the first week after immersion as possible. I find if I don't act quickly, I don't do any of them. So that's just me. Cool. Thanks, Paul. I think that's a really valuable question. All right. So let's start with moving around the tribe and hear what people have got on their minds and what they want to talk about today. And I'm going to reward the wonderful people who've demonstrated all the correct behaviours by jumping into the survey and putting something in there first. So, Paul Farina, I'm going to come back to you, mate. Could you have a chat to us about you've got a bit of a quest going around your book at the moment and you're writing. So this is where I just shut up and take the next 7 minutes of Shane and let you hand over to the trial to find out how we can help them.
Thank you, mate. So I joined the book quest, and I set out right from the start that by immersion, I will have it certainly written and drafted, not necessarily published. If I get it published by then, that's going to be a bonus. But I saw that as being realistic for this quarter. One of the ways of delivering, one of the modes of writing is something that I find, in a sense, quite easy, to the point of, I can just sit down and bang out 1,000 words. And my challenge is actually keeping my writing short. And so getting down and just typing and going is not difficult for me. But so really for me to be able to do 100 words a day is never going to happen. What works for me is to set aside a day or 2 days or a chunk of time and blitz the hell out of it. So I've got a few days triage for that in a couple of weeks' time or whenever it is. And so I'm basically getting myself ready to get into that zone and smash out this book, or at least as much as I can in a few days. So before I do that, what tips you got, folks? I've got...
Ask Callum.
Ask Callum. I was just going to say, so obviously there was a bit on book writing and immersion. There's been a few different breakouts, those sorts of things. So I've certainly, gone over those notes and taken that on board. But I just, wanted to get some personal tips and tricks, what work for you in that preparation, and maybe some things to look out for. And anything in between.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found when I was writing Emergent that that when I sat down to write, I have the same flow as you. I can sit down and write 1,000 words, no problem. Keeping it short, synthesizing stuff is a big challenge for me. What I found was really game changing was structuring my book into parts and having high level pink sheets for every part of the book, and then actually developing pink sheets within pink sheets, like we do with models within model, like pink sheets with, like how you can dissect a master model into maybe 20 or 30 pink sheets. And then I just, in my writing times that I designated, which was pretty much every morning, 3 days a week, I just wrote up my pink sheets. And therefore, at the end of a block of writing, I'd have a really congruent, I'd have a chapter with segments, or I'd have a part of a book. Do you know what I mean? And it just made the whole process a lot easier. So the pink sheets actually became the game-changing element to the writing, and it keeps you focused too. I find if you're right, you've got an A statement, and then you're writing about a metaphor, and then you're writing about research and story and all of that, it just makes it a lot easier. And what you end up with at the end of it is something that's really clear for someone else to read, rather than just a whole lot of brain dump. Yeah,
great. So that gives a nice process, really, is what you're talking about. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Paul, I mean, I'm certainly not the authority of this, given that it was a cram session, but just following up on, you want to blitz it, right? So you got some time set aside that you just want to, I think it was your term, blitz it. And if you're going to do that, don't edit as you go. So just get stuff down on paper. And when you find yourself laboring, you might find that you want to get into editing, and don't start that. Like, just stop, go and do something else. Or if you've got a structure like Stephen's just said, and you've got, say, your chapters are certain pink sheets, and you've got pink sheets on your pink sheets. The way I found it most useful, because I'm all over the place in my, like just the way my head works, I'll write on something, and then I might flick to another chapter and write another segment straight away on something else, and then go to back to the introduction, but not edit it, but just add stuff in. So that's just the way I work, but I found that's how I just got content in there. and then the editing comes later. But just don't edit as you write. And you've probably heard that advice, but I think it's really important to not judge or criticize what you're writing the first time you're going through some stuff, if that helps.
I
So
think
It's-
both those bits of information are sensational. Just to build on that, I think Seth Godin talks about how we often talk about writer's block, but you never hear someone talk about talker's block. And I think, when we talk, we just free flow, whereas when we write, we're too critical and analytical. So I think, what Callum was saying there was spot on, is just free flow the writing and worry about the critiquing and editing after that. Because if you're too worried about the editing, you'll never get past page 1. So
yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. And I reiterate what Stephen was saying at the onset, that the pink sheets just give you that freedom. So, within that pink sheet, you can free flow, and you just got to back yourself with it.
Yeah.
I haven't written
Sorry,
a book,
guys.
Paul. I haven't written a book, Paul, but I have written a 220-page master's thesis, and I had 1 month to do it before our first child was born. And what my big thing was not going rabbiting on off into squirrely places and everything. So I set up a schedule for myself with a little timer, and I set it for every 50 minutes, I had to get up, do push-ups, get a cup of tea or something like that, and come back and see what I'd done, see if it still made sense, and then kept on going. And that was very efficient for me in terms of really staying on focus about what I was writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Good tip.
I forgot that. Sorry, I was just going to say to build on something that Mark said. I completely forgot that that I also used the Rev app, because there were points in my journey where I got really stuck and with writing, and I just like when shit was hitting the fan, when I came out and when my marriage broke down, and you just got to keep going because you've got a team of editors working with you, right? And talking, it just was so much easier. And yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Is it a Rev app?
Yeah, rev.com, and you get it in the App Store. It's a free app, and you just voice record, and then at the moment you finish the recording, you can hit send, and it sends it up to the cloud, and they transcribe it for you, and it's $1 a minute for the transcription, US $1 a minute. It's fantastic.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Saved my life. Yeah.
Well, my one is just when I've ever done my best writing, whether it's articles or ebooks or trying to get my book done as well, this was advice that came from Kelly Irving, was to create an avatar for who I'm writing to and name that person, and just stop myself and ask myself constantly as I'm writing, am I solving this person's problems? I have a tendency to drift off into my own IP, and I think it's just so abundantly clever, and even if it's completely unhelpful. So I've got Marg Hendry. Marg Hendry's a principal of a tough little school, and I'm writing to Marg at the moment to try and solve all the problems in my latest book.
That is very cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really clever tip. Yeah.
These are the sort of practical things that I was looking for in this chat. So brilliant, folks. Really like it. Thank you.
Marvelous. Thank you.
You're welcome, mate.
Hey, the next on my list here, and this is one that's a little bit off to the edge, but Ingrid, I know that you've written down here that you've just back from 4 weeks in Europe, which must have been horrible, and you're just looking to reconnect today. But is there anything that you want to have a chat about today, just because you were next on my list?
No, maybe adding to the roller coaster from the beginning, at the moment what's shaping up is I might be changing my thought leadership slightly, because I'm learning so much through this health issue that after a while, when I come back, so hopefully come back in February, that I might be the master in energy management, because I've got so little energy that I have to master. So at the moment, I'm just back to doing 1 coaching session a day, and then my brain grows crazy after that. And I, as a thought leader, I was really unfortunate because my brain stops to think. So, and then nothing really comes out of it that's useful. So hopefully by February that's better. So at the moment I'm just managing around that. So, and I didn't plan for it, I didn't wish it on anyone, but that's the reality.
Yep.
The other thing I learned, I'm not sure where we mentioned that, but I don't have income protection insurance. So for some of you people, if you ever considered that, to a certain degree, so I don't, which is not a serious struggle for me, but it would have been just nice extra cushion.
I think it's a complete step to the right here, but we had many moons ago Jason Cunningham, whose speech, you know, some people loved and some people couldn't stand, and that's fair enough from the practice. But there's quite a few thought leaders that go through the practice in Melbourne, and I do, and just to help me get things like all of my insurances and my financial planning organised, they get the whole thought leader journey on that. So that's one that's worth having a snoop at if you'd like to take up Ingrid's advice, I think. Hey, Callum, are you there, mate?
Indeed, I am.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this whole thing with Ingrid and the journey that she's been through recently, and the you know, that little thing I think I wrote in that email to you today, mate, about metamorphosis, and you know, just going through something and coming out as something different on the other side, and you've been through a bit of that. Have you got anything just in terms of, I guess, generating the thought leadership and moving on from something that's that has your pivot, I suppose? You know, have you got anything going on there?
Shit, not that I could do. Like, when you ask that, I'm worried that I won't do justice to it, but that I'll chew up too much time as well. Like, trying to be succinct is one thing I like. So you've helped me, Adam, through this for probably the last 6, maybe even 9 months, right? And my thought leadership has changed on a couple of occasions, where I was focusing on HR. I went to sort of kindness, and now I'm moving into something else. But the kindness thing is the real thing that's sort of driving me. And so one thing that that pissed me off at the time that you said to me, Adam, that was so sensible, was you've just got to keep the plates that are, and the clusters in particular, that are making money, keep those spinning while you still want to go towards that new passion, like that new thing. And it's to be sensible with, and this is what creates that roller coaster, right? Where what you currently do, if it brings in some money, keep doing that while you're also doing the other stuff as the side hustle. And so, Ingrid, the new stuff is got to be like that may be the stuff that lights you up, but is that making money? And so we've got to go, well, where is that money, and try and do that dual role. And this is something that I've actually really struggled with, is launching a new cluster and not going all in with that, because I'm either 100% or it's dead to me, right? And so keeping up a whole lot of clusters going is a bit of an issue for me. And so that's my only concern with you, Ingrid, is that you can sort of jump to this. I'm not saying you're like me at all, but you know, there's always the fear that you jump on the new thing that you're really, really keen on and let other things slide. But those other things were the things that actually worked for you in the first place. But I also think that that's called growth, right? When you go, actually, this is some new stuff, and you've got the opportunity with the curriculum to turn something that you've realized about yourself and that you're learning really deeply, to turn that into something that you can make a living off, right? And so, I mean, I think you're in the perfect space for it. And if any of us can help you out, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. The interesting thing that happened for me is before I got the vertigo and everything that followed it, is I earned most of my money from facilitating larger team programs. And at the moment, I just can't facilitate. So I had to go back to coaching. And then the interesting thing happened, this is that I suddenly attracted people. So at the moment, I only really work with people who come to me. I haven't done any sales really. But the people who come to me, they all have some sort of stress or energy management issue. So that's why I think there's something in it. And so now I'm thinking maybe I can create a cluster where I just do like a 1 or 2 hour mini workshop series, or maybe I do it online, so I don't have to travel, so I can save my energy on the travel time. So in a way, I'm rethinking more sort of the delivery mode and fine-tuning what I had already there at the beginning, but maybe put more focus on it now. And at the moment, I can't really think it through to the end and do it. It's just like baby steps. But there are 5 more months to go to February, so
Yeah.
I get there.
Yeah, I think, Ingrid, I think a good way to build on what Callum was saying is that there are the clusters that make you money, and then there's the passion that you know that one day you'll get to. So I think the key is in that period of transition that you keep experimenting with your passion, and don't put pressure on yourself that has to make money, but find ways to experiment. So, I mean, for me, 2 things that I want to experiment. I'm very fascinated by mental health and the impact that mental health can have on our capacity to be, you know, human beings. So I'm not looking to make money from the area of mental health, but I'm looking at ways to experiment to grow my ability within that sphere. So I'm looking at ways, you know, I've never done speaking per se, so I'm looking at opportunities to speak on the area of mental health. And I'm also looking into, you know, joining the comedy sort of festival to sort of talk on mental health. So there's no pressure on me to make any money. I'm just going to be getting out of my comfort zone and then picking up knowledge as I go. And then one day, for me, the 2 worlds will collide. But as long as I keep experimenting, I think your passion keeps burning, and your clusters that make you money is what sort of puts, you know, keeps a roof over your head.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Good wording, experimenting.
Yeah.
One of the things that just came to mind to me then when Mark, you were sharing that, is that and in context with what you're experiencing, Ingrid, and I can't remember who said this initially in the tribe. I think it may have been Matt, talking about how our thought leadership comes through us. And so if you think about what's going on when you're working with people, you know, stuff's flowing through you, right? And sometimes that's not necessarily what our cluster is, or you know, what we're even passionate about, but it's flowing through us and it's actually having an impact. You know, and being intuitive or sensitive to that is a really important thing, I reckon. For me, the best way to describe that is, in my own practice, is my entire practice and thought leadership was built around purpose and innovation cultures and things like that, and using movements to build engagement. And yet the work that I was doing with people was about helping them get out of their own way. And interestingly, the irony is that I'm always in my own way, right? So, and now it's all around high performance and getting people unstuck, right? And actually helping them work out what's blocking them from doing their best work or achieving their potential. Now, I would never have said 2 years ago that that's what I would be doing now in my practice, right? So it is that experimentation and just being open to what's going on in the moment, who's coming to you, who's connecting with you, what are they interested in, what's going on in you, and how does that align, and create something amazing out of it.
That's a really good question, actually. What's coming through us? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm good.
Good to have you back, Ingrid. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Hey, Kirk, you wanted to have a chat today about large clients, lag time. What do you do with big wheels that turn way too slowly? What's on your mind there, Kirk?
I recognize that this is largely a numbers game. More large wheels waiting to be turned. And so I recognize that. But one of the things I was wondering is I'm getting a lot of really slow responses, and just wondering, is there something I am doing, or is there something I'm not doing that's helping to create that? So I don't know if there's much of an answer you all can give around that. But one of the things that, as we were sitting here too, that has come out of some of the, while I'm waiting for those big wheels to turn, I've been looking at what else is happening. You just mentioned, Matt, our thought leadership comes through us. And one of the questions I've had is, well, where are my ideas, where are my conversations currently being had, and why isn't that my thought leadership? And one of the things that's coming through, I've been getting people calling me asking for customer service things around wellness at work and those kinds of things. So I'm wondering, just to try and bring it back home to what is actually happening in my life, I've been rethinking how I put myself out there in terms of wellness at work, working well, and dealing with difficulties with people. And so those are two different things, but as I'm waiting for these big, huge mammoth things to perhaps land, perhaps not land, I've been also thinking, where do I need to start? What are some of the smaller things that I can be operating on right now as well?
I think Peter Cook, I'm sure it was him. I'm a bit blurry at the moment with the reading, but I think Peter Cook wrote during the week about really focusing on problems to solve. I think one of the things I was doing probably 2 years ago was going in and presenting to the big clients. And what I've probably done the last 12 months is not present to, but to listen to, and then adapt to what I'm hearing, to the problems that they're articulating, and really zeroing in on that, and then coming back with a proposal that really hits the problem that they've articulated in the meeting. And I know that sounds basic, but I think I was 12 months ago sort of assuming I knew their problems. Did the green sheet, here are the problems, go in. But now I'm basically doing the opposite. My first meeting is really a listening meeting.
Yes.
And then coming back and sort of saying, this is what I heard, here are the problem that you've articulated, here's how I think you can solve it. I may or may not be able to help you. Here's a way I can help you with that. And I'm finding I'm getting more traction with that approach than to go in all guns blazing from the start. Because when I was presenting and I wasn't cutting through, or sometimes they have to, tell somebody else up the chain, and that's where it was falling over. So if you can sort of get to a stage where you understand not just the problem of the person you're meeting, but what KPIs do they have to solve, and then try to align it to that. That's where I'm getting more traction and speed through that sort of bureaucratic phase.
Hey, Kirk, just adding to what Mark said, because he's on a similar vein, I guess. Simon Dowling did a session on a Saturday once, and I harp on about this all the time because I reckon it's one of the best Super Saturday thing sort of breakouts that they did. It was called Selling to Big Corporates. And so there's a video on Central, and it's quick, it's only about 20 minutes, but he's got sort of 4 layers to this triangular model that he builds on. But one of the points there is to nurture your portals, and what he means by that is your key person, your go-to person in that organization. Like, make them your best friend. Don't annoy them, but really nurture them and see how you can help with what they're trying to do in the organization as well. So serve them with little expectation of getting much in return. And so that video, he'll go through some just really basic but key tips that have really helped. They've really helped me in working with larger organizations that you can just get lost in and become just a number or feel like you're nobody because people aren't getting back to you. So he outlines some key tips on how to make sure that people do get back to you, so you're front of mind for them as well. So that could be useful if you just search. I mean, if you just search Simon Dowling and selling to big corporates, it should be there.
It's Ripper.
Yeah.
Kirk, I had two very simple rules. One for when I'm in a clicking meeting, and that is that at some stage I try to make the statement / question, geez, that's no good. What's the impact of that? Which gets back to Mark's point of just listening and asking questions about what it is that's really the problem. So sometimes they'll tell me, oh, the kids are misbehaving at school. They've really got some behaviour problems. And I go, geez, that's no good. What's the real impact of that? So when we good teachers leave. So now I know what I'm really dealing with now. And then
That's gold.
The other one's an in-between, like after the clicking meeting, when I've put the proposal in and I'm anxious. So my rule around anxiety, and I've been sharing this recently with my associate director who's doing work with me now as well, is he's been asking me, I put in a proposal, I thought they were hot, but now they're not answering me. What do I do? And so our rule is that whenever we're anxious, we get generous. So, is to, when we don't send the email that says, hey, where are you? I thought we sent you a proposal. We just send an email that says, hey, I was thinking about something we were discussing and I've got a collateral here that I wanted to send you because I reckon you'd be into it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So I've got a large proposal in for a big cluster of schools at the moment. They're not cold. They told me that they're meeting and discussing and making a decision about it in about 2 weeks from today. But this week they're getting an email from me that says, g'day, everyone's just thinking about you. I ran a couple of sessions recently last week. I reckon you guys will be right into the white paper I wrote. Here you go.
Fantastic.
And so if I'm anxious, get generous is the simple rule.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Kirk?
Very helpful. Yeah, particularly that last one about generosity. The CEO went on sick leave, and so I don't know who's acting in her position, but I've been looking, am I creepy if I go ask, who is this person? How can I help them? How can I set up something? I don't even know who it is yet. But yeah.
Give him something.
I've been thinking about that idea. How can I be doing something here generously?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that we don't make our collaterals work hard enough for us. We build and write these amazing things and record videos, and then they just sit there and do nothing. And I think that's nuts.
Thank you, everyone. That's very helpful.
Awesome. Hey, Callum McCurdy, what's on your mind, mate? Something would have triggered you today.
Can't unmute myself there, Aim. I've talked enough, haven't I? Bloody hell. So you've just called me out, Adam. Clearly, I didn't fill in your survey. Actually, it's on.
At least you
there we go. Fess up, huh? So thanks. Semi-public shame's always good. Hey, it's actually on. I was going to ask something else, but it's now about this, what you just talked about, the white paper. So I've written 4 white papers. Whenever people download them, I get some good feedback on them, and I really like to use them, but I don't use them. You've just sort of triggered me. I don't use them or leverage them as much as I could. Apart from sending them to saying, I think this will be of interest to you, just as you've outlined, having them available, sending them to people who you think, who you've essentially written them for. I've been thinking of, say, breaking them down a wee bit and using them differently, cutting and slicing them. Does anybody do anything like that? Like, how do you use them? Because otherwise I think they just become boring and lost on a website as well. And they just sit there. And eventually, if I sort of was to delete it because it seems like it's 2 years old, no one would notice anyway. So any tips on how to reinvigorate something that perhaps you're a bit bored with yourself?
I was going to say, is that the issue, that you're bored with it or that they are?
Oh, no, it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can the first tip be get over it?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
They haven't read it. They're not bored with it.
No.
So that's, you know, I send out an ebook to anybody who sort of steps into the world for the first time, you know, who makes an inquiry. I can't tell you the last time I read it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't even really remember what's in it. I know that it was good once, and they can have it. You know, and I think that that's one way to, you know, have people access your IP, your thought leadership, and then I think there's just those little things that you can do. You know, anybody who gets a proposal from me gets a thank you card and a pen, you know, wedged into an envelope with my shocking handwriting on the front, and that just goes to them just to say thanks. I really appreciated being able to talk to you about your school, and so I think any little things like that you can do that, you know, it's not sort of taking, I guess I'm not answering your question in some way. I'm not taking an existing collateral and chopping it up, but I think that I try to make the collaterals demonstrate gratitude. And so I think anything you can do in that space is a useful thing to do.
That's cool. I like it. Yeah, thanks.
Callum, I think another way is often like your white paper will be sort of solving, you know, 6 major problems or something like that within your organisation. What I've found with, say, white papers is, you know, I've repurposed them as blogs. So that helps. And then what I'll normally do is say, I'll do a blog on, say, the 6 takeaways of that given problem. So then I'm just giving one email to a person saying, you know, here are links to 6 of my blogs.
Yeah.
And so I find that people have been more receptive to that than to give them often a white paper that they won't open. When they can see that there are takeaways, they're sort of just on one blog. They go into the blog, they can read the takeaways really quickly. And then if they want to link on to the actual blog, they can do that as well. So I've just found that easier.
That's awesome, because I don't blog enough. Like I've got this real block when it comes to writing my newsletter or putting a blog out. So, I mean, there's instant content there. Perfect. Awesome. I've got months worth. Cheers.
Is anyone working with infographics? Because I wonder whether with some of the white papers you could give it to someone who just summarizes it into an infographic that you could use then on LinkedIn or somewhere. But I haven't seen it yet.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love it.
I just saw, I read an article a few years ago by David Rock about learning, model learning, and he just put out another one and said an update of that old model. I was like, ooh, I want to hear the update. It might be, you might want to go back through your things and see what I've learned since then. And
yeah, it's good.
That's really good. Yeah. I like that last line. What have I learned? Like in the interim. That's brilliant. Yeah. 2.0. Cool. Thanks, Tim.
Not at all. Hey, Mark, I'm struggling these days to engage with you without thinking about Springsteen.
I hope I haven't ruined that. I hope I haven't ruined Springsteen for people.
I think you have. You came up for me the other day. I'm in the car and Born to Run came on. And normally I just, you know, I'm just belting that out, and then you're just right before me the whole time.
Sorry.
So well done, mate. So that means you delivered something with impact, I reckon. You've crept into my psyche.
Beautiful.
Hey, mate, what's on your mind at the moment? What can we do today to help you?
Well, look, it's a problem I'm sort of embarrassed about, really, is because my problem is I've gone from someone who did a lot of thinking and selling to now not really doing a lot of thinking and selling, but doing delivery every day, which sounds great, and it is good, but I'm not getting around to doing the fun stuff. I've got the bug now for speaking, but to think about speaking as a cluster, I haven't even got my head around that. You know, the book that, you know, I want to get into writing a book, because, you know, everything I'm doing at the moment is geared towards delivering. and my load and the delivery is so big. It's just, how do you get off that, I suppose, that treadmill of just using all your thinking capacity just in the delivery rather than switching it to the thinking and selling, and more so and getting into some spaces that actually, pump you up.
This has happened to me, Mark. And the first step is always wriggle room. So, my business manager, Chris, will, she'll go, your delivery's too high. Is there any wriggle room here? Is there any room that we could put someone off? Is there any way we could spread some of the heavy delivery periods into less heavy delivery periods so that I can get a day, so that I could get half a day, to be able to do that. And then, this is going to sound really unhelpful. Then there are times when you've just got to do it.
Yeah.
There's times when you've just got to go, you know what, I'm just going to talk myself into being fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I know that this delivery's on, and I know that I don't really want to. I know that I'd much rather be sitting down and thinking and giving myself a chance to do those other pieces right now. But I've looked at wriggle room, and I'm just going to have to do this one. So I'm going to be better today than I've ever been before. And you convince yourself to deliver incredibly well. And I think then the other piece that should be, Mark, and one of the either ambitions or imperatives of being a black belt is you got to start crafting this now. You got to start to craft your calendar.
Yeah.
Is to say, I know that I can get busy, so I'm going to have to create time in my calendar when I'm not.
Yeah.
So you're going to be telling people I'm booked, and you're not.
Yeah.
So you're telling people, yes, I'd love to do this work for you. I'm available in March.
Yeah.
And start to take control of that. There's all this mad psychology that goes on the second we start to refuse to do work immediately.
I wish I'd known that when I was younger, when I was 18 or 20.
Yeah. But I think there'll be other people here who would be able to articulate how to manage that psychology far better than I. But I just fight it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Mark, that it's an awesome thing to be in delivery. Knowing the challenges, that we've all had around, around selling our stuff. And when you're in delivery, I know this is not. It's kind of tied to the question, but it's not specifically what you asked. But there's something about, I guess, the gratitude of being in delivery, because it means you've sold something, and it's an opportunity to really be awesome and show what you've got. And I think, the other thing from that is then when you deliver powerfully, then if you've done all the things, and you've added the value, and you've delivered on the promise, and the client's right there, they're going to be going, well, what comes next? And it's all about building deep relationships with the people you work with. And so you're in an incredible position right now. And obviously you do, you coming back to your question, it's about managing how you actually do think and, get all of the stuff, the creativity and stuff you want to be doing done. But yeah, it's just, I think you're awesome, mate.
No, well, I want to volley that back to you, because I was never so chuffed as your post this week about the new book you're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like you've catapulted to the place where you wanted to be. I know, because I remember speaking with you obviously 2-3 years ago, and you've got to a really good place. It seemed like, you just said it was all about purpose and culture of innovation, but now you're going, looking into yourself and the power of yourself.
Yeah.
And so it seems like your solution is to sort of evolve to a place that personally aligns to what you want to do. So therefore, the work that you're going to do is going to be fun anyway. Whereas a lot of the work I'm doing, legacy work that I don't consider fun or aligned to who I am, but but it pays the bills. So it's just getting
Yeah.
that balance.
Yeah, we need both. Absolutely, we
Yeah.
need both. And I think I think this relates to all of us. But if it's not congruent, if the work isn't in some way congruent with who you are and your values, then it's always going to suck, right? Even if you're masterful at the way you deliver it, right? But yeah, you do have to, like, if there's no joy in it, then find a way to create joy in that work, like flip the attention out or something like that, so it's not just doing the work, it's actually serving them at a higher level or something. I don't know, just find a way to find the joy in the work, and that'll get you through it, right?
I think there might be also what you just said. You could also look at it like relabeling it, because I don't remember who said it, but one immersion, someone said something around that every time they deliver, they see it as selling, and then sometimes they see actually depends on what you deliver. But for example, in coaching, you could say, "Oh, something brilliant just happened, so I create this model right in the moment or afterwards." So even in a workshop, this sometimes happens, that you come up with something that you capture while maybe they do some group work or whatever. So it's more getting away from the label that it's only delivery, and then by in your mind saying, okay, where's this little moment where I can squeeze in a little bit of thinking or selling, and then enjoy that. Because then your mind goes somewhere totally different. That's a little bit what Stephen was describing. And other than that, I really agree with my learning with the energy. So if you really do only things where in your mind you labeled it as something, it's not aligned, I don't want to do it, it's sucking your energy. So by relabeling it, you're actually setting yourself up for much more sustainable delivery.
Beautiful.
I think what's the other one? Isn't it Matt that writes a pink sheet every time a plane's landing?
Yeah,
it would be.
I remember him saying. Yeah, I remember him saying that.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's his way of just squeezing it in. If delivery's high. Yeah.
Thank you, team.
Pleasure. Mr. Calendar, you made your way from the car, got your way inside. Was it your young fella Adam wandering around behind you there, was it?
Probably. That's a good question. Yes, probably. Although he has long hair, but any hair is probably more than what I've got. But
what's on your mind tonight, Adam? What can we help you with?
Oh, I mean, I guess last time we had this call, I was really bottoming out and really, I felt like post-immersion, I was flying. That lasted all of 13 days, and then I went over the handlebars on my bike. And anyway, I can
not figuratively, literally. Yeah.
That's right. I was staggered about going over the bars. So I've got teeth now, and no scabs. And really, I was amazed at the concussion and all the rest of it. So for me, it's just been a battle to get back on track. So and the big thing I've struggled with was that white paper. I raised it. I think last time, I think you gave me some really great advice about busting out. So what I should probably do tonight is I'm still polishing that white paper. It's my first white paper, and I have really, what would you say, procrastinated extensively over it, as well as struggled with it. So now I've written a fair bit of content. It's too wordy right now. It's too complex, and it's really just trying to make it readable. So I shared it with Paul Matthews last week. Shared it with him, and he's given me some great commentary. And then I'm happy to throw it over the fence to yourself and Stephen, if you like, or you may think that could be a really bad idea as well. But so I don't know. But So for me, it's interesting thinking about the delivery question. Yeah, I often come out and thinking about delivery. I always end up with new ideas coming out of delivery. So I always end up with pink sheets out of delivery, and also I often have a proposal coming out of delivery. So I find delivery a great time for proposals. But no, I really feel like after a tricky month from 13th of September through to about earlier this month, it was a tough time. But yeah,
you're right.
Looking onwards and upwards. Despite, I don't know, yeah, I just think I keep finding new challenges for thrown at me outside of my thought, like outside of my practice. Just keep finding new challenges. But so it's investigating aged care all day today was one of those. So sandwich generation, infirmed parents, kids, yeah, you know, any curveball life can throw at you. I think we keep finding those, don't we?
Yeah. Can I ask, does anyone here have a belief about thought leaders and collaterals like a white paper, and whether the tendency is to worry too much about it and polish it to death, or the tendency is to not worry about it enough? Which one do you think we tend to fall into?
Definitely worry too much and polish it like it's your baby. It's almost your mini book, and just think that it has to be spot on. And so that's what I was thinking about, Adam, as you were talking about procrastinating and trying to make it, and how you said it was complex. I reckon with a white paper, people kind of don't expect it to be perfect, or that's my take anyway. It's like it's the draft of your introduction to your book, and so throw it out there. And just because I said I've got a couple and I'm bored with some of the content, that's why I was talking about you know, how can I repurpose some of it? But when you can, I reckon you can be really proud of that first white paper, because that's a milestone. Like that's an achievement. And if it's based on a green sheet, it's an introduction to your book, right? And if a couple of people like it, you can make money off it, but you can go, actually, could this be a book? You know, and so the potential from a white paper is huge. But to answer Adam's question, yes, we overthink them, I reckon. What do other people think?
My white paper was called Artisans of Connection, and that was the prelude to Emergent, right? And I gave a designer a Word document, right? And it said, make this into something pretty, and it came back in this phenomenal, like designed template that cost $30 to buy off Graphic River, and it looked incredible, but it was shit. The content was shit, right? And everyone went nuts about it, right? Because they were just excited that I'd published something, right? Because people, and I think we really just, you know. And the thing that helped me really through that was Pete's thing around published is better than perfect, right? And the white paper for me created so much momentum and interest in my book that I had a pre-following of more than 1,000 people just for updates on my book before I launched it, right? Before it actually came out, right? But the white paper itself was terrible, right? It had the high level kind of concepts that are now in the book, but in terms of the writing and the way it was structured, it wasn't that great. But it was just a Word document, you know. So yeah, if that's anything to kind of explain, you know, yeah. Anyway.
But Stephen, what does that tell us? What's at the base of that? Fundamentally, what's important in that white paper?
Well, obviously the concepts that are in the white paper are important, but how it's written isn't important, right? When I say how it's written, I think it's obviously got to be clear, and people have got to understand it, and it's got to talk about it's essentially, you know, your green sheets, your positioning matrix, your green sheet, and your pink sheet all tied together. but it doesn't have to be perfect, right? That's the, you can still be developing the ideas, and you can still be developing the depth around the ideas. All you need is the top level, right? And for it to make sense, and it to relate to people, and yeah.
But Adam, I'm going to say something that's slightly controversial.
Go for it, mate.
I'm not quite sure where you're at, but I'll relay a story. There's one cluster I have that I do it with another person, and he was considered the sales guru basically in Australia. So the cluster was on sales capability. And he kept telling me, we need the white paper to be better. We need the podcast to be the best podcast. We need everything we had to do. And I sort of said, look, this is getting us nowhere. Let's just get in front of people and have a chat.
That's right.
And this is to the person who was considered the sales guru in Australia who didn't want to go out and sell. And I think we can spend all our time on white papers, on podcasts, on blogs, when the only thing I think we should be doing until we get to a cadence is meeting people, listening to their problems, trying to solve their problems. Once you get into that cadence, then I think the discussion on white papers and how well they should be written, that comes after all that. I think knocking on doors, listening to people, solving their problems, once you get to do that, the white paper will solve itself.
No, fair enough. Fair enough, Mark. Yeah, thank you.
I reckon there's something in what you were talking about there, Stephen, incredibly profound. And it's that what's the job of a white paper sometimes? And like Stephen's story here is almost that what he wrote in the white paper didn't matter, but what mattered was that he wrote it.
Yeah.
People were so pumped that Stephen had written a white paper that went, oh, wow, look, your name's on it. And I think that that's the essence of a white paper. So when I try to write a white paper, and I try to write a white paper to support any cluster that I launch, it's always that I'm trying to go a roughly 80-20 principle. So I'm trying, for 80% of the white paper, I'm trying to demonstrate that I have thought through their problems more deeply than anyone ever has. And that's how and the fact that I bothered to do that on somebody else's behalf builds trust. So they're only getting about, my white paper is only about 20% pink sheet. They get a glimpse of what I could possibly do for them. Or the white paper, why I want the white paper to serve as a mechanism for them to go, that's the guy I want to talk to.
Yeah, it's positioning,
It is. It's a positioning piece. And I think that a white paper allows you to position as somebody that they can trust, because you've bothered to put yourself in their shoes and articulate what their known spoken and known unspoken problems really are.
Yeah, and to follow up on, or to maybe even use your words, Mark, to be slightly controversial, because I don't know how well this will go down, but what you can do if you're procrastinating, Adam, around trying to make it perfect but not quite knowing what that is, if you've been working on it, it's probably pretty good anyway. So why don't you send it to 10 people and call it a draft and say, look, this is just some pre-thinking, even if you have no intention of ever going back to it and finalizing it, but just saying, this is just something I've been thinking about. I'm drafting this up. Would love to hear your thoughts.
I love that.
Just do that.
You're getting their buy-in.
Yeah, totally.
Especially as I've done a lot of interviews in the preparation for this, so I sort of spent since early June. Since early June, I've been doing interviews for the white paper, and so I've done roughly 100 interviews, and so now all of these people are expecting the white paper.
Dude, that's not a white paper; it's a book.
I know. I can't wait to read this white paper. It's going to be the greatest one ever.
You're going to have to set aside a week to read it.
It's going to take forever to read the white paper. Yeah, you've got a book.
I've got it down to 3,000 words, but
that's amazing, mate.
But I filled 2 moleskins just with notes from my interviews, and I was I interviewed all sorts of people. one of my last interviews was the CEO of Stockland, and so I got in and met lots of amazing people, and got to really look under the hood. And it's about emerging leadership, and I got to take them back to when they first became responsible for others in the workplace, and
you've got an
and what that
incredible
journey
book
looked
there.
like.
You've got an incredible book.
Absolutely. That's a book. You've
Yeah.
got it all there.
Just a quick
You
show.
do nothing else.
You could
Just
skip
a
the
really
white
quick show
paper.
of hands here. Does anybody think that Adam has done enough interviews for his white paper?
I think he has. Woo!
It's time to push that sucker out there, Adam.
Yeah,
Smash it, Adam. Smash it.
yeah. The graphic artist, my graphic artist, keeps ringing me every week. You know, are you ready? Can you send me the white paper?
Yeah.
Can I start working on the white paper?
Why don't you skip the white paper and make it into a cluster book?
Good. I like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea too. Yeah, yeah.
Because when you, for example, you look at Oscar Trimboli's book, I'm not sure how many words it
Yeah,
has,
that little one. Yeah.
but
Looking around somewhere.
maybe not many more than 3,000.
Okay, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, his little book of listening. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. So, and when I wrote a book which I haven't published, I think I interviewed 10 people, not 100. So
Yes, yeah. So it's been marvelous, and so yeah. I sort of feel like, yeah, I'm going to use then that white paper to go out and see if I can activate those people that I've been talking to in my markets of interest, which is like sort of the building technology sector, communications technology sector. Yeah. You've
also now got 100 people you can go try to sell your cluster to now, because you've interviewed them. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really wanted to build credibility and go out and have a really clear agenda, a focused agenda with them. Yeah.
Yeah, mission accomplished, I think, mate.
So can I be controversy number 3 and ask Adam when something's going to be published?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've got to get this sucker out off my PC really, probably by the end of the week.
yes,
Get it off
Nice.
to the graphic artist. by
Send
the
it
end
to
of
the
the
graphic
week.
artist. Send it to the graphic artist and just run screaming from your office.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been an extended journey, shall we say?
Yeah. Oh, well, mate, I'm personally just pleased you're back to health. It's obviously been
Thank you.
a big time for you. So another one that's welcome back.
Cheers. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because it is a curveball, but it's really great to be on top of my game again. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right,
Thank you.
Stephen, are you having any burning thoughts here from a facilitator point of view that we need to? Anything you want to summarise or add here at this point?
Not really. I think that's no, not really, mate. I think I think I've said all I want to say tonight. So I mean, there's the only thing is just like be kind to yourselves. It's like we just get so into the flow of everything that we forget that we're just one person and a human being, and we need to self-care a lot more than we probably do. And yeah, that's what I just keep coming back to. So yeah.
Wise counsel.
Yeah.
All right. So, my favourite thing is to ask, is there anything unsaid or unasked before I let you all go back to your families and life? Gone.
well done, team.
All right. Good to catch up with you all again.
Good night, everyone. Thanks,
Bye.
Adam.
Good to see you all. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah,
thanks.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
We'll make sure you get sent the recording of this one too.
Beautiful.
All right.
That'd be
Thanks, mate.
great. Thank you.
See you, folks.
Cool.